Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 6 of our Pause and Prepare webinar series. Today, our webinar is around successfully transitioning into a new role from, offer stage to your first week, and we're looking forward to today's discussion. My name is Erin Wettle, and I have been working in the recruitment industry for almost 20 years now, and I've been working at FRS for 3 years. I'm a project manager here at FRS. And today I'm also joined by Miriam O'Hara. So I might hand it over to yourself, Miriam, to introduce yourself.
Hi everybody, I'm a senior construction and engineering recruiter with FRS, and I am with the company over 3 years now, and I was a teacher before I started all of this, so I am one of those people who've gone from different offers all the way through to the first week. And with us here today is Jack Foley.
Hi everyone. So my name is Jack. I'm a commercial recruiter. I've only been in FRS about 10 or 11 months, and before this I was in internal recruitment. So I worked with a couple of engineering companies in internal recruitment there.
Great. Thanks for that, Jack. So look, what I thought we've got quite a lot to discuss today. So I thought we might just, just get started. And I think, the discussion itself is quite, topical given the times that we're in at the moment. So I think the first point I thought, is worth bringing up is around the current market, the times that we're in. Like, what are your recommendations on changing jobs? Jack, I might get your perspective first there.
Yeah, so in terms of the current market, I think one thing to definitely kind of be mindful of is to be open in terms of industry and the industry you're looking to go into. My own experience before kind of all of this kicked off, kind of from September up until February, March, people were quite specific, quite picky about, and justifiably so. There were a lot of opportunities out there, but I think now, because the opportunities are slightly more limited, you do have to be a bit more open about what you're going into, maybe step outside your comfort zone a little bit with your next career move. And it's not necessarily going to hit every kind of note for you in terms of the exact specific right role, the exact specific industry, but I think that is definitely something to keep in mind going forward now.
And what about yourself, Miriam? What are your thoughts at the moment, just given the current market? And maybe you can tell us a little bit about the construction industry as well.
Absolutely. I'd echo a lot of the sentiments there that Jack has made. But even on top of that as well, it's very interesting within construction engineering, because now, for the first time pretty much since I started recruitment, there's more opportunities outside of Dublin than there is actually in Dublin at the minute. The shift from, say, tier 1, 2 has basically been made over to go to the SMEs and also to semi-state organisations. But also another thing that's definitely happened is that there is a big change in the type of contract that's offered. Before, it was traditionally, it was all perm for, say, the likes of white collar staff, and then it was all temporary and 0 hour for the likes of blue collar. But now there's even fixed term contracts that are coming in, there's temporary contracts, so there's a lot of kind of different opportunities there, and it's largely to fit in with budgets with companies themselves as well. And like, they don't want to be, setting anyone up for, a lie either. Like, if they don't want to offer you a permanent job, if they can't see it with the current guidelines, they're not going to do it either. But that's not saying that things will just get better and they might be able to offer it later down the line. So I wouldn't turn it down necessarily if it's a right fit for you and where you want to be as well. And like, that location is a big driver at the minute. COVID is after giving everyone time to think, really. And like that, if you can have something where you have flexibility, or you can work from home, or it's just suiting your own life or family life or whatever, it's definitely, it's something to consider, to be fair. So don't say no, definitely have a look. That's what I'd say.
I think we were saying earlier, that there are quite a few really sort of unique roles that have come up. I think you were saying just then as well, roles that you haven't seen come up in many years. So look, there are some great opportunities there, and I think there's obviously going to be, a level of risk associated with that, but there may also be less candidates, looking at the moment as well. So you may also have, better chances of securing that role as well. So absolutely. I think lots for people to think about. And I guess just if we sort of then moved on, if someone has received a job offer and they're at that kind of negotiation stage, like, you know, how important would you say that stage is in terms of the recruitment process? Miriam, what would you say on that?
Well, to be fair, like the negotiation piece, you have to communicate across with your recruiter and with the company that you're going to move to exactly what you want. Because if you have a second thought about something afterwards and the recruiter doesn't know about it or the client doesn't know about it, you might be left shortchanged. And like, you know, that's the truth of it, to be fair. You have to sit down, and even before you even think about going for a job, ask, what do you really want? And kind of, you know, make up your mind as far as, right, I want flexibility, or I want benefits, or I want career development, or I want furthering education, or a salary, or, you know, something that will just help you get along, you know, that kind of way. And then once you have that communicated across, be clear with your recruiter. You know, if you've got leeway in certain areas, you know, what could you make up with this? Because, you know, like, it is a tighter time, to be fair. Like, I definitely think that you'd have to consult with your recruiter as well, even as far as salary expectations are concerned, because there is a bit of a shift, you know, from one company to another, or from one area to another as well. And like, if your expectations cannot be matched at all, you know, there's no point in, you know, nearly insulting the company either. You definitely have to be in range with what they're willing to pay too, you know. And definitely for those who are, say, looking for to relocate from, you know, one place to another, that definitely has to be there if they don't know what the local market is like. And the beauty of a recruiter is that you're dealing with these jobs all the time, you know, and you know exactly what the wage should be and what the person should expect from that, you know. What would you think about that, Jack?
Well, in terms of the recruiter fighting your corner, I think you're absolutely right. The advantage of going through an agency is that we have our finger on the pulse of the market, and so, you know, we do know what to expect for, you know, X and Y experience. But so two of the main things that I found that are fairly important in the negotiation and offer stage. One is kind of that you're varying your offers, so you're going to get offers from employers giving you X salary, Y benefits. But on the other side, then, you know, you are obviously in a position to make offers yourself. And when I say varying of the offers, I mean picking 2 or 3 aspects of an offer that would be important to you, so whether that's salary, flexible working, like you said, Miriam, further education, or whatever it might be, and kind of putting together 2 or 3 variations of those 3 things. And I suppose to keep in mind that they do need to be of equal value to you, but what it does is helps you kind of focus in on what the employer, you know, is and isn't willing to give you. Like, are they kind of a bit sticky on bumping up the salary, or do they not really want to offer flexible working hours? And it just kind of puts you in a better position to know what you're able to get and what you can ask for, you know, reasonably. And I find the second point is anchoring. And what I mean by anchoring is, if you go into salary negotiations looking for 50k and your recruiter has advised you that 50k is the market average, let's say, for your experience, an employer comes in and does this anchoring and throws you a figure of 40k, then, you know, your natural reaction would be, oh, well, you know, I'm not going to get anywhere near 50k, so I'll ask for 45, and that brings you down massively, you know, already by 5k. So I find those are the 2 kind of main things that I found in the last kind of 10, 11 months that are massively important in the negotiation stage.
Yeah. I think you know, using, if you are going through a recruitment agent, it is, you know, it is ideal because you do have that person there who is negotiating on your behalf, so you can be very honest and clear with them in terms of what your expectations are, you know, what you're seeking, whether maybe it's the salary, as we said, is it the flexibility, the career development. They can then negotiate on your behalf with that client, and I think, you know, it can be difficult for candidates to do that on their own. You know, if they're doing it directly with an employer, that could potentially be their future manager, and it can be a little bit awkward for them to do that and to feel that they can be asking those type of questions. I think sometimes they think that they may they may lose out on the opportunity if they're being too pushy, which isn't the case. But I think that's definitely the benefit of having a recruitment consultant, because they'll be there. They'll be there negotiating for you in the background. I also think it's just very important, I think, at this point in the process, to put everything out on the table in terms of your expectations of what you're looking for, because if you don't do it at that offer stage, it's too late. Another thing as well, I think in there, it's really important, I think, mentioning if you do have any sort of annual leave or anything like that that's coming up. There's, I think, nothing worse than if someone starts and then they have 6-week vacation planned. Like that certainly isn't great. So I think just putting everything out there, laying it all out on the table with your recruiter at that point in time, or ideally before even, and then going through that negotiation stage. And look, if someone has accepted the offer, guys, what would you say then in terms of notice period and how long until they should actually go in and resign? What would you say to that, Jack? What would your thoughts be?
In terms of resigning, like we kind of touched on this, as soon as possible. Miriam was talking about this with us before, and the coffee room chat. You don't want kind of rumors to be going around and getting to your manager about you leaving before you've actually had the conversation with them. So being as kind of jumping on that basically whenever or as soon as possible, I think is key. And I suppose again, kind of being upfront about it as well. As soon as you get that offer, having that conversation and not having the conversation with your mate in the coffee room, again, that's all just going to get back. You don't want rumors kind of bubbling up and following you then into possibly your next role. Yeah.
And what do you think, Miriam, on that as well? Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely, to be fair, because when you go to resign, it's a serious decision to make, to be fair, and like that, you have to give respect to that employer that, is after giving you a chance there for the last couple of weeks, months, years, whatever the case may be. And, you don't want to burn any bridges either. Like, you have to do it in, a mannerly fashion, go straight to them first. Don't say it to anyone else. Be honest and clear about why you actually are leaving as well. And, everyone has the right to resign, to be fair, and the whole thing is that you are going to be moving on for a better option, that kind of way. And that is what you should be considering at all times, is that you are doing the right thing. But definitely one thing about resigning is, your notice period as well, just to be aware of that even when you're at your offer stage and you're trying to give start dates or things like that, make sure that you review your contract, because your notice period could be anything from 2 weeks to 6 months, depending on the organization. And we've often had it that employers are not in a position to offer someone a position if they have to wait around for 6 months for them, unless it's very, very specific and they have that facility. Like currently, a lot of people, they can work off, you see, between immediate all the way up to kind of 2 months. But after that, it's too hard to dictate, to be fair, and definitely
the etiquette of serving your notice periods, turning off for the last month of your job, that's going to look terrible on your part. And maybe kind of spoke about burning bridges. That will follow you into maybe not necessarily your next job, but maybe 10 years down the line, where you meet a colleague or even same manager again, and they know you as the person who handed in their notice and for the last month didn't tie up any of the loose ends, didn't finish off the projects that they had started. And just gives a bad impression of you. It may not necessarily be you, and I know that the temptation will be there to switch off. Like, great, I'm moving to a new job. My current one, I'm only here for another 2 or 3 weeks. Don't really have to put in much effort, and that couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah, I think we've all seen that. And I think the other thing, it would potentially impact your opportunities for references in the future as well. So I think it's really important to make sure that you do tie up those loose ends, and that you don't switch off for that notice period as well. Now then, the next kind of subject would just be around, I guess, actually handing in your notice? Like, I know I spoke to the two of you before, and I was saying, look, I have found it quite difficult before, especially when I've left, you know, a company that I've really enjoyed working with and really, you know, a great boss, that type of thing. I found it very hard and stressful to actually, you know, hand in my notice. What are your tips for people on handing in notice itself? I don't know, Jack, did you want to
Sure.
cover that off?
So in terms of actually the meeting or the interaction you have to hand in the notice, do not do it over the phone. Definitely don't do it over email or text. It has to be face to face, because like Miriam said earlier on, you've been given an opportunity. Whether you like the job or not, you know, love it or loathe it, you were given an opportunity to work for this company, and you know that's another bit of experience that you've gained. And the least that you can do is speak to your manager face to face and explain to them why you're leaving and when you're leaving. As to the why, be as factual as possible. Obviously, if it's the case, you know, you don't like, you know, your manager, or you don't like where you're working, don't be that honest. But in terms of, if it is a case that you're getting a better benefits or better salary or more progression opportunities in the offer that you've just gotten, then then say that, because at the end of the day, that's feedback for them, and no one likes being lied to, especially in a case like this where they're going to lose a member of their team. Hopefully, it's going to be a case where you're a valuable member of the team, and they want to know why you're going and what they can do to stop someone like you leaving again. You know? And we kind of spoke about not burning bridges and references. I suppose a good rule of thumb would be to have at least 2 or 3 really good references from each job, which shouldn't be difficult. Whether that's your boss or whether it's a colleague, just have a couple people you can rely on from your previous role to be able to say, look, yeah, like Miriam or Aaron, they were excellent, great to work with, or great team member. And I suppose that's a good kind of rule of thumb to go by if you are looking at leaving.
Yeah, absolutely.
You want to touch on that?
Yeah, Miriam, what are your thoughts then in terms of
like it's kind of an interesting one, to be fair. Like I finished up my thesis there just before Christmas, and it was all on retention of staff, and like that exit interviews, like the why, as Jack was mentioning there, that's a major drive for organizational change as well. And when someone leaves your organization, it'll actually make you think. And like from both a client perspective and a candidate perspective, like you have to have all your ducks in a row, to be fair. And if it's not right, if it's not a cultural fit, or it's not a location fit, or salary, or career progression, or whatever, the whole thing is that you have to have that in your head before you go in there to give in your resignation, and it has to be a valid reason, to be fair, like, because if you're going to pick something out of the air, they're going to kind of lose a bit of respect for you, to be fair, that kind of thing. And like that, there has to be some solid, like, evidence for why you want to leave and why this is a better option as well. And like that, right now, you should move on for a better option if they're there for you and it's in line with your experience and your expectations as well. But the whole thing is that you have to keep your eye on the ball and keep an eye out for vacancies, because I'm seeing it myself that stuff is filling like overnight, 3 days. Like, there's CVs, like people have rang up in the morning and a CV is sent across by the afternoon, and the person could start within 2 days, and like that, there might be people looking at the advert for like 3, 4, 5 days, like even up to 2 weeks, and like that, because they didn't engage with the recruiter, they don't know the status of it. They send off their CV and then they're nearly angry at the fact that like no one has got back to them, but it's filled, or it's in the active interviewing stage, so the thing is that you have to kind of keep up with what's available, and then everything else will just fall into place, to be honest.
Yeah. I think as well, just with the resignation, I think I like the sort of, I think you mentioned before, a practice run. I think that's a good idea as well, just to kind of get your facts together, do a practice run, maybe with someone at home or what have you. It's just to help, I think, with that confidence. And you make a very good point there as well, Miriam, just around the market. It is moving really quickly, so I think if there is that sort of opportunity there that you've seen and you're interested in, jump on it quickly. or it could be too late. Now, the other thing that I guess that happens from time to time, look, it doesn't happen all the time, but that occasionally someone may accept an offer and then their employer will come back with an offer to try and match that or even better that, which I guess we call a counter offer in the recruitment world. We'd call that a counter offer. What have you sort of seen in terms of counter offers, Miriam? Just in particular in the construction industry, how does it work out for people?
To be honest, like the first thing, like when you're dealing with counter offer, you're basically saying that you're not happy with that employer and you are looking elsewhere. So it is broken trust. Between 80 to 99% of people who accept counter offers, they end up leaving within 12 months anyway, because they were already looking to begin with. There was something there that just wasn't a right fit for them. The whole thing is listen to yourself. You could be won out. You could be won out in the short term by money, but in the long term, are you going to be happy? That's the truth of it. And like if COVID has taught us anything, to be fair, is like money really shouldn't be the determining factor. It should be that you're actually happy in your job and where your job can bring you, to be fair. And like that goes for any industry. It doesn't make a difference what you're doing, and it has to be the right one, and like that, you have been thinking about this, like you're not going to just like swap and change at the drop of a hat, to be fair. So think hard about why you were leaving. Is it that, the salary itself is going to be, the determining factor, or is it going to be the perks or benefits? If it's not within their capabilities not to offer them, well then, and the other option has it, why not go for it? That's the truth of it, But another thing about counters, to be fair, is that like for all the time that you're going to spend, like toing and froing and whatnot, maybe if you had a conversation with your employer in the first place, you mightn't have got to that stage, if you had the communication level up, and you were successful through your probation and everything else, it might mean that you might have a happier workplace, to be fair. But the whole thing is, you have to be true to yourself. It has to be the right fit. If you're going to move, make sure it's right for you, because you don't want to waste time of your own employer. You don't want to waste the time of any prospective employers or a recruiter either, because, it just has to be right. And like no one really wants to have their time wasted, to be fair.
That's a good point.
You could waste your own time.
I
think you could waste your own time as well. You said that you could easily waste anywhere between kind of a couple of months and a year in a job that you're not happy in. And I suppose what I've kind of seen is that counter offers can kind of pump up your ego a bit. You're about to leave and like, oh well, they're after come back and offer me 5 or 10 grand more. And unfortunately, I'm never going to counter offer myself, but I imagine you can easily say, oh, I'm after getting this. I should really accept this because I'm clearly, but somewhat valued anyway. And it would make you feel like, oh well, Jesus, like they might actually really want me, they might really need me. But like you touched on, there was a reason that you went to interview with another company, that you got to the stage where you almost accepted an offer or ready to accept an offer. And like you said before, Miriam, dissecting that counter offer, unless that checks the couple of boxes that were left empty by the role in the first place, that counter offer, I don't think you should really consider taking it. Because, for example, if you have aspirations of progression, or if you're looking for something like a people management role, unless that's been offered to you or is promised to you kind of a little bit later down the line in a counter offer, then really, a bit of extra money or a few days annual leave isn't going to really fix that. And like I kind of touched on at the very start, you're only going to waste your own time in a job that you're not happy in.
I think I agree. And I think I know just in my own experience recruiting, I know we're sort of saying 80% to Miriam, but I'd say nearly 100% pretty much of any candidates or people that I was dealing with that accepted a counter offer, they had come back to me then within say 3 to 6 months, because things just hadn't worked out. There usually was a reason for them looking in the first place, and that maybe that extra money or that extra kind of promise that was made, it tended to not sort of work out for those individuals. And I think that broken trust is a really big part of it too, because I think it'd be a little bit uncomfortable then working in that environment when you had, you know, they kind of knew that you weren't happy there and you had been looking elsewhere. So I think that can also, you know, make it even more uncomfortable. But so now I guess if we're sort of looking at someone who has accepted a new role, they're about to start, how do you recommend they sort of approach their first day just to make sure they do make a good impression? Miriam, what would your advice be for people who are starting a new role?
First off, just as we have here, I'd say overdress, don't underdress. You know, always go in with like sharp business formal attire, you know. If of course you're going to be like in an office-based environment, if you're out on site, make sure you have something practical on you. To be fair, you know, always have a raincoat and a very, very good raincoat at that in Ireland in the back of the car, you know, and a change of socks and that kind of thing. Because you just don't know what to expect, and always be prepared. No matter what, be punctual. You know, companies can have different cultures. You might see, like, you know, some managers are always 5 minutes late or more, or like an hour late. Don't succumb to that at all. Make sure that you are there early for at least the first month, if not your entirety of your probation, because you're the one that's under scrutiny. You know, they're the ones that have been there for years, and, you know, make sure that you are there and you're prepared and you're ready to go no matter what is thrown at you, to be fair. And definitely on the first day, like, you know, even though your job hours might be 9 to 5 or whatever, make sure you stay there until you're literally given the nod. And to be fair, that communication piece on the first day, and I've had it myself, and like if someone actually goes and says to you, God, great job, or lovely to have you here, or whatever, like it just makes the day so much better. Like you skip out the door home and, you know, you just feel that bit more welcome as well, you know.
And what about the limits of the personality, Miriam? Tell me more about that.
Well, I probably had my personality in a box for the first 6 months. Like there was no jokes out. Poor Kilkenny crowd now, to be fair, they get 3 or 4 of them on a daily basis. There for a good while we were all back together. But like that, you know, you just have to kind of, you know, suss out the crowd as such and kind of know where you're coming from. And yeah, and like that, like your personality, you don't want to be locked away in a shell either, you know.
Yeah.
You want to definitely bring your talent and your skills, and, you know, your personality is what really gets you the job, and that's what, you know, won you over in the interview anyway, you know. So definitely use it, but definitely, you know, kind of save something for later is what I would say. You know?
And Jack, there's a lot of people, I guess, that will be starting new roles remotely now, which is, I guess, a completely new thing. What advice would you give to people that are doing just that, Jack?
I suppose in the previous slide you said, you know, be courteous and attentive, and I think it'll require even more effort than a normal first day doing it remotely, because I suppose normally you'd have the luxury of being able to actually go up and speak to people, and even you can't even do that now, shake their hand. So there's an effort to be made, whether that's, you know, sending out a team or organization-wide email, introducing yourself, giving a bit about yourself, depending on the size of your team as well. I mean, look, we have the luxury here, we only have teams of kind of no more than 10 really. So, you know, in a team of that size, you can afford to, you know, pick up the phone, give them a call, introduce yourself. You can let them know you're there, because look, I don't know, being on the other side of it, I'd certainly appreciate if someone kind of come into our team in amongst all of this and took the effort to give a call or drop an email to introduce themselves, as opposed to, you know, kind of them having their hand held and the boss, you know, telling them who they are and that in a Teams call, you know. I think it'll definitely go a long way, especially when you kind of come back into the office then, and the introductions aren't happening, you know, 2 months after you started the role, and you had 2 months of an opportunity to actually introduce yourself and make yourself known. Because that's like you said, Miriam, kind of bringing your skills and your talent and putting those on show. Like the first couple of months is when to do that, and not, you know, when it's convenient. So I think definitely more effort put into it. than your normal first day, but it's definitely worth doing.
Yeah. I think having that sort of confidence. I mean, you don't want to be overly confident, but I think coming into and approaching your first day with that confidence, maybe even a bit of preparation. You might have done a bit of LinkedIn kind of research on your colleagues and your team. So it's not, everything's not completely kind of, I guess, brand new and unexpected on your first day. And I'm not great with names, I must say, but I think, maybe if you've got a phone list or something like that in front of you and you can make little notes about who you've spoken with and that type of thing, just to help kind of with the names and who the people are. I think that there are little things that can certainly help. And then I guess the last thing that we wanted to discuss was really just around the kind of the probation period and any kind of advice or tips that you'd give in relation to that and making it through the probation period. So what would you say to that one, Jack?
I suppose, probation is for a lot of people, I certainly found it a bit nerve-wracking because a lot of the time, you don't know formally how you're doing until you have maybe a 3 or 6 month review. But I think one of the biggest things that definitely helped me kind of get through probation was having, and so look, I was lucky enough that myself and my manager sat down and we did this. But even if you aren't in a position where your manager is setting out objectives and goals for you, it's definitely worth doing yourself. Stuff like getting up to speed, like very simple things like getting up to speed with whatever software or whatever computer systems you're using, something like Salesforce or CAD or whatever it is. Kind of hitting kind of very basic targets, because after the probationary period, that's when your key performance indicators are properly going to kick in, and that's when you're going to be people are going to be looking to you to add a bit of value to the business. So have kind of clear, achievable goals, and honest goals as well. So if you genuinely want to, let's say, add some kind of value to the company, that's well worth having that conversation with your manager on it.
Mm.
And I suppose persevere as well, because it's always going to be tough, probation, especially if you're moving into a new industry. Like for myself, moving from internal recruitment to external, it's totally okay to ask for help, and that's do that a month, 3 months, even 6 months in. No one's going to be sitting there with a chart saying, "Oh, big black mark against you for asking for help." It's just going to show you want to achieve whatever goals and objectives that you set out at the start. And I think, look, if you do those couple of bits, getting through your probation will be easy. It's not always going to be easy, but it definitely make it easier.
Yeah. And what do you think, Miriam?
Yeah, and like the other end of it is like you might get into the job and end up thinking, Jesus, this is terrible altogether. And you have to be honest to yourself too. Like if it really isn't what it was made out to be, or anything that was in your contract that just wasn't the same when you get out the other end, is like, just be honest to yourself as well. Like if it's not a right fit, it's not a right fit. And like that, have a look again at and see what's available there, to be honest. But like, the funny thing about probation is that like sometimes you'll forget about it, but you are under scrutiny, to be fair, and like never drop your A game. Like just keep it up all the time. Like everything that you should have done from your first day should be the same until you finish your probationary period. And like that effort is key, whether it's being well groomed and on time, to just actually asking questions, putting yourself out there, and just making sure that you are communicating with your new manager or your whoever is in charge of you as such, and the thing about it is that you have to persevere, and definitely now more so than ever, there has to be honest goals, as Jack was saying, because like even within, say, recruitment or whatever, like targets that you would have had expected from last year are not going to be the same when there was a slowdown there for a couple of months, to be fair. And like that, you have to keep that communication piece up with everyone that's involved, because if anyone is left out, to be fair, it's just going to cause a little bit of hardship, and you don't need to do that. You've enough going on in your probation period. So just the whole thing is just keep it up and keep communication keep up as well,
Yeah, I think that's some great advice. You may find yourself in an environment perhaps where your manager or the business they're not big on, say, having regular one-on-ones or setting a lot of structure around objectives and that type of thing. So I think if that's the situation you are in, I think you should set your own objectives and communicate those with your manager. There's no reason why you can't sort of take control of that yourself. And I think at least then you know where you're heading in terms of your probation and meeting your own objectives. And also agree with you there, Miriam, as well. The probation period is also for the new employee as well. It's their opportunity to just really find out if this is the right role and the right company for them as well. So it does kind of go both ways. But look, I think we've actually sort of got now to the end of the things that we were looking to discuss. I didn't mention earlier, but if anyone does have any questions at all, just pop them in now if you'd like to, into the ask a question box or into the chat box. I know we've covered quite a lot, so there may not be too many questions because we did cover off a lot of content. But if anyone does have any questions, just put them up there now. And I guess just in terms of next steps from here, if anyone is looking to connect with either of us, our LinkedIn details are here, and I will also send it around afterwards in an email as well. We also have all of our roles advertised on our website if anyone is looking for a new role. As we said, there's some great opportunities out there at the moment, so please go onto the FRS website. You can also sign up to job alerts if there's something that that there's something that you're looking for. Maybe it's not there now. You can actually register and sign up to receive job alerts as well. And also all of our recruiters' details are sort of listed on the website based on the different sectors and locations that they're working in. So you can also have a look up on our page there and then get in direct contact with our recruiters. Please also follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and also here on Crowdcast. So you can actually follow the FRS page and you'll be notified of our upcoming webinars as well. And if you have missed any of our previous webinars in the series, we do have them on Crowdcast, also up on our website as well. So there are some great webinars there with tips on preparing your CV or tips on online interviews, which is obviously quite topical at the moment as well, plus some other ones there as well. Oh, okay, so we do have a question here. We've got one that's come through now before we finish things up. This is from Sinead Killian. What advice would you give to someone starting a new job where there may be some negativity from a current employee? Miriam, did you have
so it's funny, like I have dealt with that a lot of times, and definitely when it comes to the contractors in construction as well. Like what one person can say and what another person can say can be completely different things. And to be fair, you don't know until you go and you meet them first off. I'd always say, like, go for an interview and don't be afraid to ask the questions. Get the vibe, to be fair. You'll know yourself once you meet people, what way their company structure is. You'll know exactly, organizational development and whatnot. And even just the role itself, is it going to be a fit? Make sure that you ask every single one of those questions, because if you don't, you might only listen to that negative opinion and you yourself could be missing out on an opportunity, So I'd say, to be fair, is just, be honest as well. And like that, there's some companies that I won't work with, to be fair, and like it could be a different business reason for me versus a personal reason for someone else. And the whole thing, to be fair, is just to give everyone a chance until you get in that door, and then basically decide for yourself is the best thing to do. Like,
I think sometimes there can be negativity as well. Maybe if you're taken on a new role and someone else internally had applied for that role, and looked, I think typically then you'd hope that the manager would let you know of that situation so that you could then, deal with that in the sort of the right way. But it does happen from time to time, unfortunately.
Starting a role as well, and if someone is coming at you straight off the bat with negativity, I do think you need to keep them at an arm's distance, because that's the last thing you need if you're looking to start a new job, or even if you're just kind of inquiring about a company and that. And like you said, Miriam, it's about finding out for yourself. Like you said, one person's opinion, it could be they're just like you touched on there, they could be overlooked for promotions, whatever it might be. So I think just take all those kind of opinions, and especially the strongly negative ones, with a pinch of salt, because it could be just someone a bit disgruntled with where they are themselves, as opposed to the company.
And like that, it's largely jealousy, to be fair. And you just have to say it to yourself, well, do you know what? I am the better person. I got the job, So, like, you have to give yourself a bit of kudos for that too, and just kind of keep your head up, and like that. Like, if it's right for you, you'll persevere and it'll be right out the other end. And the other person, like, if they're a normal human being, they should just respect that. Like, you were hired for that reason, and it's just a better experience fit, better personality fit, and it's just fitting into what the company is looking to achieve as well, and sometimes like a fresh face is all that a company needs, just to kind of spark things up as well, and definitely that is the value of like people when they do move around, is that they get different experiences too, like there's not one job for anyone now at the minute, and definitely there's going to be not even one career for most people now, so the whole get out there and give it your all. That's the only thing you can do.
Now, there was just another question in there from someone there, just in relation to the farm relief services. So look, we're not like recruiting as such for farm relief services. So I think the best sort of advice there would be for you to, if you wanted to contact us, we can put you in touch with the right person there, or if you want to go onto the Farm Relief Services website directly and maybe just pop your inquiry through there, just they'd be the best sort of options there. We wouldn't be looking after the dairy farm work ourselves. Look, I think that's the end of the questions anyway. So once again, thanks everyone for joining in today, and thanks to Miriam and Jack. Some great insights and information, and yeah, have a great day, everyone.
Thank you. Bye now.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.